What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
Making those efficiencies to maximise service profits as well as just product profits.
When you lose the enthusiasm, that's the point to move on.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through Scaleup Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner-managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner-managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. Welcome to this episode of Scaleup Radio. Get ready for an incredible episode where Lloyd Major, who is the CEO and founder of Halo Solutions, takes us on his inspiring journey of developing life-saving software for incident and operations management. And Lloyd's deep-rooted commitment to public safety was driven by events like the Manchester bombing when he was in the police force, led him to revolutionize communication in particular during emergencies and the way that communication is handled. And through our conversation, Lloyd unveils all sorts of challenges that he's encountered along the way, which ultimately motivated him to create the groundbreaking software. And we explore some remarkable milestones in the growth of Halo Solutions already, and there's many more to go, from securing funding, receiving recognitions through various prestigious awards and programs, and of course expanding their reach, not just within the UK, but internationally as well. So prepare to be really captivated, I think, by Lloyd Major's extraordinary entrepreneurial journey so far, fueled by innovation, determination, and an unwavering commitment to public safety. So join us on this episode of Scaleup Radio as we deep dive into the world of scaling businesses and uncover his keys to success. Welcome to another episode of Scaleup Radio. Today I'm here with Lloyd Major, who is the CEO and founder of Halo Solutions. So Lloyd, welcome to Scaleup Radio.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me.
Looking forward to this. Absolutely. So Halo Solutions, what's it all about?
So it's life-saving software for incident and operations management. I think that when you take a look at festivals and you take a look at sports arenas, universities, train stations, hospitals, the one thing they've all got in common is a multitude of digital systems that don't really integrate into one place. So the human in the control room has far too many things to do and they become overwhelming. So the Halo system is really the central hub for all of those separate systems, all of that information, all of that intelligence. It streamlines it all, and then that helps to save lives, save time, save money.
Brilliant. So we're literally life-saving. We're putting, so it might be things like CCTV feeds, all of those that sort of things, pulling them all together in one user interface. So is that, am I getting it right?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the CCTV feeds. There's a phenomenal piece of technology that we are working on and launching in stages with that. It involves some machine learning or artificial intelligence, but essentially the system replaces, if you think about that control room and that poor human being who's often in it on their own, or not with many other people. But it replaces the spreadsheets, it replaces the WhatsApps, it replaces all of that burdensome radio traffic, so that you can really understand everything that's taking place. Because if you report multiple things at once, missing person at that end of the building, a fight at the other end of the building, and 3 or 4 other things that need cleaning up, you're already overwhelmed. You know, the humans have a short-term memory capacity under stress of about 30 seconds. They can do 7 things at once, plus or minus 2. And with all of that information coming in, you very quickly become overwhelmed. And when we look at recent events in history, we've got the Manchester Arena bombing and the public inquiry that followed. We've got the Hillsborough disaster and the number of inquiries that followed that. And there's always this lessons will be learned kind of mantra that's trotted out by whichever government of the day is in. We're going through the COVID inquiry now, but nobody's really pinpointed the data leakage and the responsibility on decision makers to really fully document what they knew at the time they knew it, and how that knowledge then helped them shape the decisions that they made. And one of the best examples of that in recent history is the very tragic shooting of Jean-Charles de Menezes. And whilst the outcome was very sad, the process that the decision maker went through, who was then Assistant Commissioner of the Met, Cressida Dick, was exemplary. And if any of us knew what she knew at the time she knew it, we'd have made the same choices. But the CCTV integration, just to circle back to that and not leave it open-ended, is actually, when you think about how many different camera feeds and inputs go into a control room, it's very difficult for one or a small number of humans to watch those. So we have this machine learning capacity that rolls over the top, and the Halo system itself can watch those feeds and can alert you to things that it sees and proactively tell you about threats that it observes.
Amazing. And I often like to explore what gives people the credibility in their particular sector, and I know your background is in exactly the sort of thing within the police. Is that right?
Yeah, you're exactly correct. So I joined Nottinghamshire Police in 2002 and was with them for 14 years. And across that 14-year career, worked with the College of Policing, became a public order tactical advisor, public order tactical trainer. And that puts me inside a lot of operations, a lot of events, a lot of control rooms, puts me in the College of Policing, teaching commanders and other tactical advisors and specialist units on decision-making, understanding threats, understanding risk, understanding the best way to record those decisions. And after 14 years, I transferred in 2016 to the National Counter-Terrorism Unit and joined that as a specialist tactical support officer, which is a lot of acronyms and language. Yes. But I think essentially what it boiled down to was working in that National Counter-Terrorism Unit for 3 years, from 2016 to 2019. And that was when Britain suffered a huge number of terror attacks, some which made the news, some which didn't, that NACSO are now talking about. But yeah, high profile, high pressure, high stress, lots of, I mean, you'll remember the Manchester Arena bombing, the London Bridge attack, the attacks on Parliament, and the tragic death of PC Keith Palmer. So it seemed like every other week there was somebody walking through the government secure zone with a knife or a undetonated IED on the tube network. So yeah, lots of national and international experience with counter-terrorism and domestic extremism.
Yeah, so you've got that real inside knowledge of what it takes to make rapid, good decisions with a lot of information being fired at you and with significant consequences of making a decision one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, you get those decisions wrong, you're international news and people have died. It was a significant responsibility, one that I'm sure myself and colleagues in that unit enjoyed the privilege of. It was incredibly eye-opening and definitely one of the best jobs I've ever had. and something I'd recommend to anybody in the police who may be listening and thinking of setting up their own business. But it was the Manchester Arena bombing that led to the idea for the software that led to where we are today.
So let's pick up on that. So how did that come about?
When you deconstruct that event, the three main takeaways are that the bomber, who I prefer not to name, he did a series of reconnaissance runs. He did the hostile recon. So when you consider the machine learning that we're building with the CCTV, we're trying to teach our software to spot people doing hostile recon, recognize what's happening outside, make a note of people who visit a couple of times but don't enter, and really embrace what the industry has as the power of hello. We're not profiling, we're not stereotyping, we are not in any way identifying anyone as a potential terrorist. What we're saying is this individual, he, she, or whomever, has been to your building a couple of times now and not entered. It's worthwhile somebody in a yellow jacket going over to say hello. And that's it, that's all we're doing. So that's the first part of that outer layer, that wrap around. The second part is, however you slice it and dice it, several minutes before that bomb went off, I think 8, maybe 9 minutes before the bomb went off, a member of the public had an uneasy feeling about the bomber and went to approach a steward who themselves had an uneasy feeling about approaching them, but for different reasons. And then that information never made it into the control room and never made it to the decision maker. So if you create a system like we have that has a public reporting feature, anytime the public, who are a fantastic and very responsible set of eyes and ears, choose to engage with the command and control and the safety and security infrastructure, they can raise a message and just let you know. Which is really important, because then it can go straight to the right people at the right time, and it's the right information so they can make the best choices. So that's another feature that we brought together. And then the last part, the third part, was in the immediate aftermath of that incident, communication was a huge challenge. And whilst that's no criticism of the people that were there on the night, I dare say myself or anyone else probably wouldn't have done any better. It's an overwhelming and unique set of circumstances, and you never know how you're going to perform until you face and meet that test. The reality is that actually you can predict that in advance. You know that if a major incident occurs somewhere, the communication system's largely going to be the first thing to suffer stress and probably not work. None of the first responders and the police, the medical providers, the fire service, the security company, the traffic company, all of those people, they're not all in the same WhatsApp group. They're not all on the same radio channel. We don't even have the same radio network. So getting the right information across all of those disciplines is not great. It's a huge challenge and it's very difficult. So when you have a platform that everyone can securely communicate on, it can make a world of difference, because now you can correctly share photographs that you can make real decisions on. You can decide to enter the hot zone, move forward inside the cordon, because loads of people inside have told you it's clear, rather than that message getting lost in the control room and you're waiting 4 hours before you go forward. So I think that those three major takeaways all now help us to position a compliance tool where we sit nicely with Section 15 of the upcoming Martin's Law Protect Duty that's coming, as well as the day-to-day benefits, because thankfully, terrorist attacks are still very infrequent, which is good. But obviously health and safety risks, normal security risks, the cleaning issues, the fire issues, there's a huge compliance piece that these spaces have to adhere to, and they are waking up to a really secure digital audit trail to get that done. So that event was the first one that made me wonder, well, why didn't we go forward after? Why did it take 4 hours? Oh, because they thought it was an active shooter. Why did they think it was an active shooter? Oh, because somebody declared Plato. That's the code word for that. Well, why did they declare that based on what they knew? Well, no one told them anything different. And you can really pick it apart quite quickly and go, there's a gap here. There's a big gap, and if somebody doesn't address it, more people are going to die.
Okay. So that's what led you to start to develop the software and set up. So, well, I'm going to come back there in a minute. Just can you give us a picture for the people listening as to where you are now? Yeah, how long ago was that, by the way? That was after Manchester bombing, so that would have been when was that?
So that was 22nd of May 2017. So I had the idea for the software, confirmed it with myself at the end of the summer, was brave enough to put some money behind it in the winter, and we launched a test MVP, minimum viable product, in March 2018.
Okay.
So we are now 6 years on.
Yeah.
And we have had some phenomenal, thankfully, gratefully, some phenomenal opportunities and successes. I think if I'd have ever imagined that the business would have turned into this back then, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's not all been easy. It is definitely a roller coaster.
So what does it look like now? You know, where would you say you are now, kind of on your scale up journey? What does it look like?
So I think the first milestone for any scale up is to reach that £1 million annual run rate, and we should complete that at the end of this year.
Okay.
And then I suppose another milestone is to have more than 10 employees. So you start to shrug off that macro business and move to a micro business model. We've got a number of employees that work with us now. We've got a healthy team. We've got our own developers. We've got a nice sales team, great marketing support, PR support. I mean, it's a bit of a beast, but we are probably positioning ourselves now. Whilst we've had a great time in the UK market, there is demand for our products overseas. So we're about to go for, we've had some seed investment. We're going to go for a Series A fund, and we want to scale up and address that global challenge and really become a high profile tech business. That's our next step. So we've reached that foundation level, that successful business model. Now we want to scale up and go global.
How does the business model work? How do people pay you? How does that work?
So we have a pricing model which is software as a service based. It's license based, and it's a subscription. That enables us to grow the business with regular annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue. And we have 5 really straightforward pricing models. The opening pricing tier is free. So we do offer the software for free to venues that have less than 800 people inside them. Okay. Business premises, the nighttime economy, daytime economy, anywhere where less than 800 people gather, they can have the software for free. And then we move through that with unlimited users at every step, right the way up to an enterprise version, where you might be a massive train station that has a throughput of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. So the risk profile is very different. But every person has the same core product. So the highest benchmarking level of safety software that we provide. So it doesn't matter if you are, Manchester City or Mansfield Town. You have exactly the same software. All that you have is a different risk profile because different numbers of people come to your stadium, and you have potentially extra bolt-on modules that you may or may not need to run your stadium. But we don't have features that, it's not like the more you pay, the safer you are. We don't like that. So and then people pay it annually or monthly.
Brilliant. And you've got you've got tens of thousands of users, I think, on the platform. So, and along the way, I know you've won various awards. As you said, you mentioned you've had some seed investments. I think was that part of the Midlands investment? engine
was,
pump
yeah.
with Midven, and I believe you've been on the Innovate program as well, haven't you? Is that right? The Innovate UK Edge.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, so we were identified as one of the top 100 fastest growing or most innovative tech businesses in Britain, and invited onto the Innovate Scaleup UK Edge program, which is a huge kind of honour really to have that kind of identification and get that kind of government support, and be identified as pushing the edges of an industry when you think about it, compared to the size of, I don't know, Microsoft or Facebook or these other gigantic tech businesses. And we're here delivering world firsts. We were the first incident management company in the world to integrate a ticket scanner. We were the first incident management company in the world to integrate multi-agency logging in the way that we deliver that. And we've got a number of other world firsts to our claims. And it's phenomenal to think that that kind of technology is being produced by us, and we're the only ones in this space doing what we're doing the way that we're doing it.
Yeah, but phenomenal stuff. So you've had quite a journey already. Let's unpick that a little bit, and let's what are some of the things that maybe have surprised you and that you've learned along the way.
So I think the biggest surprise is the software development cycle. Very early on, we made the decision so I'm a non-technical founder. I would describe myself as that. I don't believe I could write a single line of code. I could probably recognize it if it was in front of me, but I couldn't tell you what it did. So I'm not a coder, but I'm technical in the sense of I know what I want it to do and how I want it to work, and the closest relationship between how that software behaves and what the operational end result should be. So I might even be a good translator, perhaps, for the operational need compared to the software creation process.
Yeah.
So the biggest surprise was how expensive that is, and how difficult it can be. I mean, people have these ideas for software and want to go out and test them and get started. And it was a six-figure sum for us to get started.
Okay.
And that gave us our minimum viable products, which is frightening, because if I was selling T-shirts or fruit, or I could get a business going for 100 quid, including creating it on Company's House and getting the first batch of whatever T-shirt I wanted to sell.
So how did you fund that? How did you fund the investment to start?
So my wife and I had been renting for a long time, and we'd saved up the deposit for a house. And she very patiently and supportively agreed for me to throw that at the gamble. Yeah. So we chucked our whole deposit and all of our savings in, which was a considerable sum. We'd been saving for probably 8 years, a long time. And my business partner at the time, he was in a very different financial position and benefited from having some of the life savings he'd accrued, being 20 years older than me and close to his police retirement. So they were able to match us, and we went into it as 50-50 partners.
So that's a pretty strong commitment from through your wife and your wife obviously as well, part of that really. So goodness me, how do you what was that like at that time, and what gave you the confidence that this was something worth putting that money into?
Well, two things really. So, I mean, after you see the problem, you then can't not see it everywhere. And I ended up working at a festival in Nottingham called Splendour Festival. It's at Woollerton Hall. It's very good. It's very nice. Recommend it. But we had 2 people reported missing at the same time who had a similar description. Both white females, early 20s, blonde hair, glitter on the face, white vest top, blue denim skirts. It was the uniform of the summer 2017. And when you look out the window, that description probably matched. Well, firstly, we thought it was the same person reported twice.
Yes.
And then you look out the window and realise there's about another 2,000 people that look the same out of this 18,000 capacity crowd. And they had photographs of their girlfriends and friends that had gone missing, and we couldn't share them. We're not all on the same WhatsApp group. We didn't have everybody's email address. And I thought, God, that's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, we could make Halo and it'd solve this. It has to be a good idea. I don't think I'm just blindly believing in it. It has to be a good idea. This problem is everywhere. And the MVP was just enough of a risk for us to think, well, I've done the research and there's nothing else out there that kind of does it the way we want to do it. There's nothing that's mobile app led. Incident management systems are 10 a penny. There must be 200 if you Google them, and they're all various flavors of their own website that replaces a spreadsheet. But we were mobile app led because we knew the problem was on the ground, getting the information in and out of the control room. So, and there was nothing there. And we thought, well, let's go down that road. Let's roll it out, and we'll be eternally grateful. And shameless shout out to Judith Manson at the Reading Marathon. She was the first person who said, yeah, you can test that. You can test that at our event. And we tested it in March 2018, and it was brilliant. And the impact it had immediately from the moment turning it on. And that was the first weekend where we saved our first life. That's one of the metrics. One of the metrics that we count is how many lives saved.
I think you're up at 12 or so.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And from that moment we thought, right, okay, we can do this. And then the first commercial sale was May 2018 when we launched Halo version 1.
So that minimum viable product that was pre that trial, then obviously. Yes. So that gave you the confidence once you got to that point. But before then, it was just an idea, wasn't it?
Just a gamble. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a risk. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. So how did you? And you're putting a lot of faith in the software development company, particularly, as you say, as a non-technical person, non-coder yourself. How did you go about? What did you learn from that process?
So for me, I think the old phrase "people by people" is really important. And we went out to tender for. I mean, it's laughable now, but we spoke to 5 software companies, and I wrongly held the belief that they should be nearby. I don't know why. It's got, I know Zoom is a thing and you can chat to people over the internet everywhere in the world. And I do it all the time, every day. But somehow for that first big 6-figure buy, I wanted to look them in the eye and I wanted them just 20 minutes away. So we looked at software development companies in Nottingham. And a very good friend of ours is one of the directors at a company in Nottingham called Atomic Media. And we placed our trust and faith in him, and him and his team were fantastic. They were great at explaining it to us. They were great at building versions 1, 2, and 3 of the software. The prices were fair. And then we entered into this kind of startup business related problem that I guess all startups face, where you earn enough money and then you invest in the product. You earn a bit more money and you invest in the product. 6 years on, where are we now? I can promise you, I've not taken a fiver out as dividends or profits or bonuses. I'm still waiting for that. Because we spend everything we've got on looking after the people who buy the products and look after the public. So we're always building new stuff. And I can't see an end to that for the next 5 years or so.
How are you surviving?
We turn over enough that we cover our overheads, but we are, those overheads expand. So whilst
I meant more on a personal level. Your wife said, "Okay, look, we're going to put the house on hold. We'll use our house deposit." You must be getting a bit of pressure from home.
Yeah, well, I mean, thankfully, 5.5 years in, we were able to move house out of rented into our own little home in October. So we, my wife has been fantastic. She's been promoted. She's a teacher. She's been promoted several times. She's now a head teacher, which is great. My salary is equal to what I was in when I was in the police.
Okay.
So I replaced my salary. So we, as a family, we are fully committed to the project. And it's like most founders, I guess, who may be listening to the podcast, you're never sure if you're going to be bankrupt or a billionaire, and you could end up anywhere between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a constant but healthy challenge.
All right, good. So we've taken a couple of milestones. You've got to the point where you had that first test with the MVP, and then also commercialized a little bit later. So what are some of the other milestones along the way?
So I think hiring the first person that you don't know is a milestone.
Yeah.
Because that brings with it challenges that you would have never have reasonably foreseen. So, as two founding families, I left the police and became our first employee, if you will. But I don't remember filling in any paperwork. I mean, I have now, of course, but I don't remember giving myself a contract and working out what was what. We were just running around with our hair on fire. And then we took on a member of the public who at that time was a good friend of ours, and I'm sure still is. And he was our first soft test around, what do you think about this paperwork? Oh, okay, can you sign it? Oh, okay, right, great. Well, can you start on Monday? Oh, right, brilliant. How much annual leave do you think you should get? I don't know. How do we pay that? How do we pay tax? National insurance. So, payroll and all those things. So our accountant supported us through that process, and we got a fantastic grant from the East Midlands Chamber of Commerce that helped us with local law students, that helped us to do the employment law and the contract template, and all of those things. So we scaled up that from there. So you make a bit more money, you go to a different law firm, you have your contracts reviewed, and then you put an advert out and you hire a member of the public who you've never met before, and you go through an interview process and you keep building. So hiring people was the next major milestone. And then I think running in tandem to that, you've got this commercial knowledge or savvy that you need to learn. For me, coming from a policing background, kind of learning on the job. So having contracts for clients, having policies and procedures for if they don't pay. The first time you end up using debt collectors for people who haven't paid, the choice on whether to do that or not, the rights and wrongs and the impact on your brand and those kinds of things. So yeah, there's all of that. And I think a major hurdle, and one thing I wished I'd done sooner, was fully understand our sales pipeline and have something which really in detail gave a strong overview. So I mean, I had the idea for the software and then ran about selling it to all the people that I knew. People that I'd met and worked with in the past, people who knew people who I met and worked with. I took a job at the Cricket World Cup for a short period of time because when I left the police, I didn't want to start a salary in Halo straight away and sink the business. Even though I was paying myself a modest income, it still has to generate that income. Again, shout out to Jill McCracken at the Cricket World Cup and the kindness she showed in taking me on as a 6-month short-term contract, and that enabled me to soften that blow whilst transitioning away from the police. But there's there's a moment almost daily now where we review our sales pipeline, sales forecast, and previously when I'm just selling to my friends or friends of friends, you just kind of remember, it's all in your head. It's like, well, okay, great. I've spoken to Kevin Brent and he said he was interested. I'll call him back next Friday. Maybe a note in your phone, and you ring him back and say, oh, hey, Kevin, you were going to wait to have that meeting. You're ready to buy. Okay, great. I'll get you set up. Here's a contract. And I think being smart with technology has enabled us to, I mean, even simple things like contracts and using DocuSign or booking in for demonstrations and managing your own diary, and all of this tech that comes to play to do that is important. But we never invested, and certainly not early enough, in any technology or any training or skills to manage our sales pipeline, and it has become crucial to forecasting, the cash flow forecast, what's coming in and when, and to understanding the value of the business, going through the investment process, going through where we think we'll be 12 months, 2 years, 5 years from now, understanding our market penetration, understanding the buying cycle, what money might be coming over the next 90 days. We had no visual oversight of that, no intelligence on that at all, for a long time. I'm talking 2 or 3, 4 years, and that's probably the biggest thing that I wish I'd done sooner, and the biggest thing that I wished I'd addressed much earlier on.
Okay, and is that through is that through something like Salesforce or?
So we use HubSpot.
And
I'd highly recommend HubSpot. The HubSpot team have been lovely. They've been great in providing training in their own products. They've been great in helping us to set up a pipeline that's bespoke for the stages of our business, and then also the one-touch reports and oversight. No doubt we're probably using it for 30% of what it can do. And as we scale and bring on more talented people who know more about it, I'm sure they'll be able to do better with it. But I wished we'd almost started with it, because transitioning from what we had, which was like a notes-based system on a website, into HubSpot was really hard. And if we'd have started with it, it would have been so much easier.
Yeah, it's easy with hindsight, isn't it? And then I guess, HubSpot, there's a cost attached to HubSpot as well, isn't there? So, there would have been a point at which, you may not have actually been able to justify the expenditure either at the beginning. So
yeah, there can be. I think there's a free version, and I think you get very basic bits for it. I'm not sure how fit for purpose the free version is. It probably would have done me for 6-12 months. It would have been better than nothing. But
and then the transition might have been easier.
Knowing what I know now, I'd have paid myself 50 quid a month less, or whatever the cost was. I'd have found the money, because it's that important.
Yeah. No, good, excellent. So, how have you managed over the time? You've got a lot of things going on. You've got the software development. You've got people coming on board. You're talking about going into different markets. How are you managing to not get overwhelmed in
well, I think the honest answer is I'm not managing not to get overwhelmed. I benefit from having a personal trait which allows me to shoulder a high capacity for work. So I'm very happy getting up in the morning and working through till 1, 2, 3 o'clock, and functioning on very small amounts of sleep. I'm probably doing the work of 2 or 3 people at our business, just whilst we continue to grow and benefit from not employing them, so we continue to pay for software development. So I don't think I am. I think I'm doing a lot of work at weekends, and that's not to the detriment of the business. And I don't think I'm suffering from any burnout. And I think if we employed all of those people, it may still be in my nature to behave like that anyway. There's a number of motivating factors for that, but I first and foremost enjoy it. There's that old saying out there, isn't there, that if you do a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So it's not hard work compared to policing. It's long hours, but you're safe and warm and dry. You're sending emails, you're selling software, and it's not like you are up to your eyeballs in heroin needles, searching a field for dead bodies. It's a very different subject matter, and easier to get to grips with. So I don't complain for a minute, but no, I'm probably not managing.
Okay, so now you've got people working for you then, to a certain extent that the culture that you're setting is coming then from you, or to a large extent, probably that. So how are you looking after the culture and your team now that you've got other people to think about?
So it's a subtle thing. I would say people work with me, not for me, but it's important to me to make the distinction, and I think that plays straight into the culture. I think that I've worked in environments where you get it wrong, people die. Not to put too fine a point on it or be dramatic, but that they're the rooms that you sit in and they're the briefings that you go to. And this subject matter is not that. This is you're supporting people to bring joy. The events and stadiums and festivals and places that we supply software to, their principal mission is to deliver amazing things for the public. Cricket World Cups, Football World Cups, Glastonbury's, Formula One races. They're all joyous events. So it's a very different level of stress. I mean, in the police, we have this threshold where if it doesn't hit national, international news or somebody's died, then generally it was a good day. And the rest of it you can debrief and learn from. And here at Halo, we're nowhere near that. So I do this to answer the question with detail. I do the simple things. So I make sure that whilst it's comfortable for me working till midnight, 1, 2, 3 a.m., every email I send will have a delay send on it, so it doesn't hit the staff, doesn't hit the team until 9 a.m. We have a WhatsApp group for fun, not too much work in it, but just for quick comms. Work is all done via Slack, and people are very welcome to mute their WhatsApp and Slack channels when, of course, at weekends when they're away from work, when they are off on holiday. We have once a month we get together for a team day to discuss, deep work days where we discuss any burning issues, any big projects, and we'll do that in a fun way, either at a client's premises if they'll have us, or even various team building events. So I think the culture is just to remind people to have fun with it, remind people that we're working with people who do fun things.
Yeah, because it's different, isn't it? And I've heard before, and I've got a bit of a military background. People that come out of the military or the blue light kind of services, you're in an environment where you don't question that anybody's going to do what they should do. They've all got each other's backs. And there's a hierarchy as well to a certain extent, so to a large extent. So if somebody says jump, then that's going to get done. When you come out into Civvy Street, it's not quite like that anymore, is it?
It's very different. Yeah. People come to work with their open-toed sandals and their floppy hair and top knots, and you know what? I love it. I think, for me as a person, it's very easy to make the switch because I believe and hope I'm quite open and supportive of everybody from any background. But I think the transition is, it is different because you used to give. I tell you what, you're used to giving orders is what you're used to doing.
Yeah.
And actually, the way that it's different because it's better. And when you look back, you realise how poorly people are treated. So we'd think nothing in the police on a Thursday night, Friday night saying, see you Saturday at 7 a.m. And people would go, well, hang on a minute, it's my 4-year-old's birthday. And literally people wouldn't even blink. They'd go, so you're a police officer, there's going to be a riot and you need to be here at 7 a.m. In fact, and then we'd ring round at midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll go, you know how you thought it was 7? Actually, it's 5. So see in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And if they don't turn up, then they get prosecuted and drummed out.
Yeah.
So, and they turn up, uniform ready to go, vehicles ready to go, well trained, well disciplined, ready to listen, ready to do the business. And it isn't quite like that here, because what you're relying on is people's psychological contract with the company. You're relying on, when you say to someone, it'd be really handy, we've got a massive event in Ireland this weekend and the days are going to be 12, 14, 16 hours long. It'd be great if you could do that for 5 days and then roll straight into Glastonbury and roll straight into Silverstone. And I know that means that you're working 20 days in a row, and I know that they're mega long days, and you probably earn enough hours in toil to have the next month off, but they're the coolest events in the world, and people go, yeah, great, throw me in. And so you rely on them volunteering, and you rely on their goodwill, and you need to make sure you don't break it and you don't break them, and give some of that goodwill back where you can.
Yeah, excellent, good. And you touched on it there. What is it that you love most about what you're doing?
The freedom. Right. We have the opportunity where if a client rang me tomorrow and said, heaven forbid, COVID-20 is looming over the horizon, and can you build this particular thing that can help manage this particular issue? We can speak to the devs. They'll all be excited about it. They'll all be genuinely motivated to help. We've got an incredibly passionate and highly knowledgeable internal development team who are, without doubt, some of the best people I've ever worked with. When you consider I've genuinely worked alongside some of the highest intelligence agencies in the West, and some incredibly talented people who've done some wonderful things. These people are right up there in terms of motivation and skill set, and you can't buy that. They really enjoy building something that has a real world impact for the better, technology for good. And we can do that. We've got the freedom to make whatever decisions we want, to do whatever we like, and that is intoxicating.
Fantastic. And what's the legacy that you want to leave?
So, there's several pinch yourself moments where you go into places where people are using your software and you didn't know, because they can buy it directly. And so you go walking past somebody at an arena or in a car park or a festival and go, oh, look, they're on Halo. I wonder who sold them that. And so I think the legacy has got to be some kind of paradigm shift in society. I want to be able to deliver something that solve something massive. So if this machine learning and artificial intelligence piece goes really well for CCTV, which we are expecting it to, it's going to be one of our flagship products when we launch it to the public, then there's nothing to say that won't have a fundamental impact on violence and disorder at football. The first recorded violence at football was in the year around 1313, so we've had well over 710 years of recorded football disorder. Something's got to break that cycle. And if it's software that spots faces, that protects people from racist hooligans and thugs and people walking the streets with broken bottles and pool balls in the socks and stuff like that, and that's a great legacy. So something that has a dramatic impact on public safety, that's why we're here, that's what we want to achieve.
Yeah, fantastic. So 5 years' time, where do you want to be?
Probably out, if I'm honest. I think our business has got a 15-year cycle, and I think that's in 3 phases. We're in the middle of phase 2 now, which is our global scale-up cycle. And when you plot our turnover trajectory, and you look at the global total addressable market for incident and emergency management software, and you look at probably the top 7-10 companies around the world that are in that space, including us and a handful of our competitors who have got some great software and they're doing some great things. There's a $1 billion tech company there. This industry is waiting for its Facebook moment. They're waiting for somebody to edge out ahead of the pack and have all these different integrations and all these novel ideas. I'm sure all of us are working very hard to make sure that it's us that edge out. I know we are here at Halo. And when we do, somebody bigger is going to have to snaffle that business up to propel it across the globe in every different language and every different way possible, and make it into a Facebook type beast of its own. So I think there are companies out there that will do that, I'm sure, and that'll be a natural exit for me. And I'd like to get back to public service.
Right.
So I think that's. I can see that as a direction to go in. That doesn't mean I'm not committed to the business. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do 10 years if they wanted me to see it out. But I think plan A would be to get it as far as I can get it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to know your limits. You have to know what you can learn on the job, what you can't learn. And once you've been captain of a ship for 10 years, it's not a bad thing to give a fresh perspective to somebody else and see what they can do with it. I don't think this has to be a legacy, family-run, succession type business. I think that we can see it for what it is, and it's tech, and tech goes around in cycles.
Very good, excellent. Well, I certainly wish you all the best with the rest of your scale-up journey. Fascinating so far. It's been great to speak with you and to hear your experiences, and so thank you very much for sharing those. Are you all right for a couple of quick-fire questions just to finish us off?
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Go for it.
Great. So if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, buy Tesla shares earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Fine. Fair enough. Any books or podcasts that you might recommend, or other learning resources?
I tell you what, I like to read, but generally not for work. But I have just bought Sell Like Crazy by Sabri Subi. I haven't turned the cover yet, but other things that inspire me are things like Sapiens, written by Yuval Noah Harari, and people who are at the cusp of pushing things in a different direction for the world. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, things like that.
Excellent. Good. We mentioned a couple of bits of technology, but what bits of technology, or what apps, for example, have you found most useful? Obviously, Halo. You got that on your phone, I'm sure.
Yeah. Three versions.
A great name, by the way, Halo. That must have been a struggle to trademark at the beginning, to register and trademark.
Yeah, it was. And what you learn about IP, particularly World Intellectual Property Office registrations, is right up there with all the other things we've learned. But no, again, credit to my business partner Greg for the name. That was his baby. We did a whole brainstorming session, and he came out with that. But apps that I couldn't live without, Missive is probably our top one.
Okay.
That's our email platform, which is phenomenal, and of course Slack. Whenever you have developers, that creeps into your life. I avoided it for a long time, but inevitably crashed into it. And it's become a great tool.
Good. Who's had the most influence on you as a leader?
Dave Freestone. I was 16, 17 years old, and not long since going through a relatively tough period in my life, and I got a little job at Pizza Hut, and he was the manager of the restaurant, and the time he took to get to know people, to look after people, even simple things like you could be washing the dishes and you'd have wet hands, and he'd walk in to shake your hand and say hello, and you'd hang on a minute, I've got dirty hands, and I'm not bothered, I want to say hi. And just his way with people is something that I've always remembered, always kind, always listening, and achieving results through motivation, not through fear. So come on this journey with me. I want to sell this many pizzas and achieve these sales by Friday, as opposed to sell that by Friday or you're fired. So if the world could be more like Dave, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Good. Well, shout out to Dave, certainly. So, and you mentioned marketing and the sales pipeline and getting control of that. What's your most successful way of generating new customers?
Client referral.
Okay.
Our number one highest channel is when our clients support us and they evangelize for the products. They join our movement. They're passionate. They're as passionate, if not more, about our journey and our mission as we are. And we all foster this genuine belief that we're all in it together. So if a client wants us to build the fastest ticket scanner in the world, then we want to build it. And when they ask us to move buttons, we move the buttons. And we're very humble in saying that the product is designed by you, it's just built by us. So our clients are our number one most valuable piece of USP.
Excellent. Well, it has been absolutely eye-opening. Thank you very much. If people would like to get hold of you, Lloyd, or find out more about Halo, what's the best way for them to do that?
They're very welcome to go to the website, halosolutions.com. There's a lot of information on there, and they can book a demo, they can ask questions, they can reach out, they can contact us. All the information's on the website.
Fantastic. Lloyd, thank you very much for being my guest today on Scaleup Radio.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way, and you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.